Shalom. So, hopefully, things are sounding good. With the help of Paul Vanderclay's imaginary friend Rick, have made some improvements, I hope, to the sound and everything. Uh, yeah, so hopefully, this is working out fine. Tonight, we are going to start off by talking about Michael Servetus. Miguel de Servet. He is very well known in some circles and not known at all in other circles. Servetus was one of the major figures of the Protestant Reformation. He got into a, uh, let's say, tiff with John Calvin. He was, whether he was an actual Unitarian or not, his precise beliefs regarding the Trinity, well, we don't know, partially because his books were burnt, and along with him when he was killed. But Servetus, the reason I want to talk to you about him, is that I think he very much lived an actual cruciform life. I'm not going to get into the whole issue of whether Servetus was suicidal. I made a whole video regarding the gates of hell, talking about exactly, when someone is an actual martyr, or when they kind of grab martyrdom for themselves. And lots of John Calvin's defenders will say that Servetus was crazy or suicidal. John Calvin warned Servetus not to come to Geneva because he would kill him. And he did. And some 500 years later, Calvin's defenders like to give all sorts of reasons why John Calvin was not guilty. I think that's a huge mistake. John Calvin had, even if he didn't have the authority to save Servetus, he didn't even try, right? It's one thing to say that he could have stopped the murder of Servetus and debate whether or not that's true. But the fact of the matter is, he didn't try, right? He wrote a letter to William Farel. I hope that sentence of death will at least be passed on him, but I desired that the severity of the punishment be mitigated. And supposedly, rather than being burnt to death at the stake, he wanted Servetus to be beheaded. I want us to actually take a look at Servetus's life, see the fact, I believe, that he actually did live very much a cruciform life. He was a doctor. That means something to me. You know, Jesus says, by their fruits you shall know them. And although he ultimately wasn't the reason we found out about cardiopulmonary circulation, because his books were burnt with him, Servetus came up with that idea. It was in one of his books, which were suppressed, and later on we found out that he was the first person to discover this. So with him also died medical knowledge, and I think there's something to that. Servetus never had a family, because apparently as a child he had some sort of hernia, and he wasn't capable of that. And so when all kinds of accusations were made against him, the only two accusations that actually stuck were that he was an Anabaptist. He didn't believe in infant baptism, which honestly, that is a war that over the past 500 years, I think the Anabaptists have won. And he denied the Trinity. One of the things that was really shocking to me was to find out that more Christians were murdered because they denied the Trinity than Jews. I think, that comes partially from the fact that I thought the Trinity was so clearly taught within Christianity. It was so universal. I didn't think that there were anti-Trinitarian Christians. And there were. And they were murdered. So Paul talks a lot about how Jesus won his culture war by dying. How Jesus made everyone mad at him. How Jesus stood up for the important things. That is the life that Servetus lived. He was a healer. He was a theologian. And he saw what I think any serious Christian should see, that monotheism is incredibly important, that the Trinity is, in fact, one of the things that has really damaged Christianity. People will say that the East-West schism isn't because of the Filioque, that the Filioque is was just an excuse. Okay, but why was that the excuse? Right? The Trinity has been a huge stumbling block within Christianity. It has been... It's funny, but one of the things that Servetus was accused of was because he had said that without the Trinity, Jews and Muslims would be more likely to convert to Christianity, which I believe is 100% true. Because unless you have been raised with the Trinity, I mean, it smacks of polytheism to anybody who is bothering to think about it. It really is. So Servetus goes to Geneva. He gets arrested. He's put on trial. We have records of his trial. He does not recant. He gets convicted of being against infant baptism and against the Trinity by the secular authorities, right? It wasn't the actual church. And this is what Calvin's defenders will say in order to defend against the charge of murder, is that Calvin wasn't at the head of the civil authorities. He didn't have enough power. He wanted to have Servetus beheaded as opposed to burnt at the stake. But honestly, the fact is that he wasn't a citizen of Geneva, and legally, at most, he should have been banished. Just a little note that people on this channel might find interesting is that Servetus's mother came from a famous converso family. So he may have actually been halakhically Jewish. I think it's incredibly important to see the parallels between Jesus's life and Servetus's life. In a sense, there was the Sanhedrin trial in front of John Calvin, who acted like Caiaphas. He was the high priest in Geneva. And he didn't see that. And this sort of washing their hands of it, right? This trying to blame this way and that way, right? As opposed to blaming, or even trying to blame the times. It's so funny. Ask a Christian if Pilate, I mean, it was the times. He killed a Jew. So I guess killing Jesus wasn't so bad. It was the times, wasn't it? I think Christians have to seriously look at what happened there. And yes, I do believe that the Trinity is a big part of what happened there. I think there's a reason why Michael Servetus was against the Trinity, lived a cruciform life of healing and love for God. Love for God and love for men. Because I think he had a genuine faith in Jesus. He was apparently multilingual. knew Hebrew and Greek and Latin. And he took the teachings of Jesus a lot more seriously than John Calvin did. And as a Christian, if you're going to talk to me about the culture war that Jesus won and the culture war, how we are to win it today by emulating Jesus, then I think you also have to look back at the saints. I can't pass judgment on Michael Servetus. He died because of his belief in the oneness of God. That is a martyr's death in my eyes. And the cause for which he was martyred is a just cause, I believe. His last words were, "Jesus, Son of the eternal God, have mercy on me." I don't think Servetus died for nothing. Everybody wanted to kill him. The Protestants wanted to kill him. The Catholics wanted to kill him. And they did. And for me, the little fact that in burning his books, they burned knowledge that could bring healing to the world, accentuates what happened there. We have holy Christian martyrs who died for the unity of God. I keep on pointing to the fact that despite Jesus saying that the Shema is the most important commandment, the first of commandments, right? That's in the Gospels. That's what Christians agree that Jesus said. And despite the Jewish custom of reciting it morning and night, and despite the fact that the Bible itself puts so much emphasis on it, the only liturgy that has it, apparently it gets read once every 3 years as part of the gospel readings, because it's in the Gospels. Well, twice if you include the other time. And there's a liturgy which Catholic religious say on Saturday nights, which includes the Shema. That's it. I think we need to take the martyrs seriously. We need to take the martyrs for the oneness of God seriously. And I think we need to realize that when Jesus says, "By their fruits you shall know them," people who commit murder the way John Calvin did are exposing a fault in their theology, a fault in who they are. And a serious Christian has to look at that scene seriously. And if there are, which I believe there are, these indications of who lived a cruciform life, I think that should have theological ramifications. Now, that's easy for me to say because I do believe that infant baptism is a mistake. And I do believe that the Trinity is an even bigger mistake. The genetic fallacy is a logical fallacy. But when it comes to religion, the fact that something comes in a package with evil is not dispositive, but it should make you think about it. Why did Servetus die? I think obviously today everybody would say that he shouldn't have been burnt at the stake. Obviously. But he was. And John Calvin had a big part in that. He did want Servetus dead. That is something that is going to count against Calvin for his life, for history. He's dead already, he has been for a while. But I think that's important. I think that's very important. Yeah. So that's the life of Michael Servetus, Miguel de Servet. There is a Servetus Institute online. Most of the information they have is in Spanish, and some of it is translated to English. There is not a lot of... There's certainly not enough, in my opinion, actual discussion of what happened there. We can't be sure what exactly Servetus thought as far as Trinitarianism, partially because what he wrote that we have is from his younger days, and his ideas may have developed, probably did develop over time. But the oneness of God is incredibly important. The Bible tells us so over and over again. And if you believe that that's anachronistic, if you believe that in our time there are no idolaters and there is no idolatry, that there is no polytheism, that it's not a major and important issue, you don't believe in the Bible as the Word of God. You don't believe that it is an eternal lesson that is meant to speak to us today. I I will just end with Servetus's last words. Jesus, Son of the eternal God, have mercy on me. I think that says it all. Okay, I don't believe there are any questions regarding Servetus. If there are, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm just checking on the Discord to make sure. Okay, and so by request this week, we are going to do Deuteronomy 33, Vezot HaBracha. I've scheduled the next 3 weeks to focus on the 10 Commandments. If you do have, and then I'm going to do at least one overview of the Shema and Deuteronomy 6. If there are any requests, please let me know. Without any requests, I'm probably going to do the other 2 paragraphs of the Shema after that. And then we will probably go back to Genesis. Okay, Vezot HaBracha. Now, there are a ton of Rashis on this, especially because this is a very poetic text. I am not going to do all the Rashis. That would take us forever. I certainly recommend reading them, but yeah, that would be just too difficult. And the language is very unique. There are words which are not easy to translate, and the poetry doesn't get translated. So we will do our best. Okay, so the New King James Version, Deuteronomy 33:1. Now this is the blessing with which Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel before his death. NIV, this is the blessing that Moses, the man of God, pronounced on the Israelites before his death. Chabad, and this is the blessing with which Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel just before his death. Okay. Vezot HaBracha asher berach Moshe ish ha'elokim et bnei Israel lifnei moto. Pretty simple stuff. Bracha, blessing, comes from the root bet resh chaf, which is then repeated. In the Hebrew, the repetition is very normal. Moses is called Ish Ha-Elokim, and the article always goes, so this is a construct chain, and the article always goes on the last word in the construct. So that's why it's the man of God, even though the article is on the word Elohim. Et is the direct object marker, Bnei Israel, the children of Israel. Okay? Before his death. Pretty simple stuff. Next verse. And he said, the Lord came from Sinai and dawned on them from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000s of saints. From his right hand came a fiery law for them. Okay? NIV, he said, the Lord came from Sinai and dawned over them from Seir. He shone forth from Mount Paran. He came with, and there's a note here, myriads of holy ones from the south, from his mountain slopes. Let's see what the notes there are. Or from. The meaning of the Hebrew for this phrase is uncertain. Which phrase would that be? Slopes, mountain slopes. Oh, esh.lam. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, Chabad, he said, the Lord came from Sinai and shone forth from Seir to them. He appeared from Mount Paran and came with some of the holy myriads. From his right hand was a fiery law for them. And you'll notice the law is capitalized there. So the Hebrew, which is very famous, Vayomer Havaya mi Sinai ba Zarach mi Seir Lamo Hofia Mehar Paran Ve'ata mirvot kodesh mimino esh.lamo. Okay, so this word lamo is the prepositional lamed to them. Yeah, it's a strange word. And you'll notice that it's written esh dot as one word and it's read as two words. And what exactly esh dot is that's the one which I guess they said slopes. So let's look at the words. And he said the Tetragrammaton mi Sinai ba came from Sinai, so it's in the perfect. V'zarach, so Zain Resh Chet is so Mizrach is the east because that's where the sun rises. That's where the dawn comes. So Zarach is it's the perfect form of that root. Miseir Lamo Hofia. So Hofia is in the Hefil. It's in the causative of I think the root is hey pay hey? No, yud pay ayin. Oh right, there's an ayin there. It's only used 8 times in the Bible. I think, yeah. You can certainly use your concordance to show forth, to shine forth, cause to find shine forth. Yeah. Don't know what to tell you. Hofia, right? Mehar Paran ve'ata mirivivot. So this 10,000, a reviva is 10,000 or a myriad. It's translated as. I think myriad is maybe better, but yes, rivavot is 10,000, and it's written be chisaron vav and chisaron yod, if you're keeping track of that, which is, I guess, unusual. So holy ones or saints, kodesh is a holy ones. Rivot kodesh, construct with kodesh. Yeah. I mean, whether we're talking about human beings or angelic figures, I guess that's not very clear. I'm guessing Rashi says, with some holy myriads, with God were only some of the myriads of his holy angels, but not all of them, nor even most of them. This is unlike the manner of a mortal who displays all the splendors of his riches and glory on his wedding day. Yeah. He gets that merivot from the prepositional mem before. So of his myriads of holy ones. That's why Rashi does that. Okay, and then esh dot. So what exactly is esh dot? The way it's getting broken up, esh means fire. Dot is religion, right? So the wedding vows are Harei at Mekudeshet li kedat Moshe Israel, right? According to the religion, or I guess set ways. So the concordance is saying it's from Esh and Dot gets used in the later parts of the Bible 21 total times. Edict. Yeah. Yeah, the law of fire, a fiery law. The Kabbalists actually go to town on this. So if you look at the Mefarshim, they certainly have a lot to say. Okay. Let's keep on going. Verse 3. From his mountain slopes, Eshdat. I don't know where they. Eshdat Lamo. I don't see how that comes out to mountain slopes. Yeah, I don't see why the NIV is choosing that. Okay, verse 3. Yes, he loves his people. All his saints are in your hand. They sit down at your feet. Everyone receives your words. NIV, surely it is you who love the people. All the holy ones are in your hand. At your feet they all bow down, and from you receive instruction. Odd. Indeed, you show love for peoples. All his holy ones are in your hand, for they let themselves be centered at your feet, bearing your utterances. And there's a lot of Rashis on here. Let's see the Hebrew. Af chovev amim kol kedoshav beyadecha vehem tuku leraglecha yisa midabrotecha. Interesting. So the word chovev, so in Arabic, Habib, right? Habibi, beloved. So chovev, chovevetzion, right? Is to cherish something. So af, yes, or even chovev amim. So it's in the participle. It's in the present tense, right? Loves peoples. I'm not sure. Did they do his people? the people, peoples, right? Amim, many nations. Kol kedoshav beyadecha. That's interesting. All of his holy ones are in your hand. What does Rashi say? All of his holy ones are in your hand. All Israel's righteous and good people clung to you. They did not turn away from you, and you guarded them. So he is saying that Kedoshav is actually referring to Bnei Israel. Yeah. So his meaning that of Jacob. Okay. So Kol Kedoshav, all of his holy ones are. Vehem tuku leraglecha. Now that's very interesting. The tuku, you have two choices, and it appears Rashi is saying that this comes from the word toch, which means midst or center, but the other ones are like from taka, perhaps to follow. Yeah, that's a strange word right there. I want to say that it comes from konen, right? To establish. It's the hardest thing is when you have fewer, when you have too few radicals, because it's such a short word. Let's see what Rashi says. Tuku. And Israel is indeed worthy of this privilege to have their souls hidden away from God, because they have placed themselves right in the middle, toch. So he's saying it comes from toch. At the bottom, the word tuku is the passive conjugation of hitvaku. They allowed themselves to be placed in the right. Hitvaku. I was hoping he would give a citation, and he doesn't. It's a strange word, honestly. Yeah, leraglecha, to your feet. Yeah, to your foot. Actually, it's in the singular. I mean, in Hebrew, we say, instead of saying dogs are cute, we say dog is cute. So leraglecha, to your foot, to your feet. Yeah. Yisa midabrotecha. So Yisa is to receive or to raise up, right? To pick up. And dabrotecha is a strange. It is a strange conjugation of the root devar, right? Dabrotecha, without the vav. Yeah, like I said, this is really a very poetic text, and it's just so hard to really try to translate it. So dabrotecha, the mem in this word is somewhat of a root letter, so he's saying that it's actually part of the conjugation and not the mem, like medaber, right? This too, namely medabrotecha, means what you were speaking to let me know what to tell the children of Israel. Yeah. It's so hard to know how to translate these things. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. The translation that they give just does not. So Dominic asked if esh.lamo is used elsewhere. It's not used anywhere else in the entirety of the Bible. The word esh dot, yeah, I don't know where they got slope from, so I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, and that word dabrotecha, like you translated your words and it just doesn't translate. Okay, next verse. The law that Moses gave us, the possession of the assembly of Jacob. Moses commanded a law for us, a heritage of the congregation of Jacob. Chabad, the Torah that Moses commanded us is a legacy for the congregation of Jacob. And this is, after the Shema, probably the most widely memorized. So when you teach your children, the first thing you teach them is either the Shema or Torah Tzivalanu. Most people do the Shema, but at the same time, you're also supposed to teach them Torah Tzivalanu Moshe, Morasha Keilat Yaakov. And this, actually, my earliest memory is my father teaching me this verse. So Torah, obviously law, right? Tziva, it's the perfect form of mitzvah, of commandment. Lanu Moshe, to us, Moses. Morasha, so this comes from Yerusha, from inheriting. So Morasha, a heritage or an inheritance, Kehilat Yaakov. And Kahal, it means to congregate, to put together. And the Kehillah, so actually a lot of places, there's a lot of synagogues named Kehilat Yaakov. So this is in the construct form of Kehillah with the name Jacob, right? Yeah. Probably after the Shema, most well-known verse in the entirety of the Bible. Well, I guess Bereshit bara Elokim Shamayim v'Haaretz is as well. But, yeah. Okay, let's keep on going. Verse 6. Well, let's look at the note here. Charged us with instead of commanded us. Okay. Tziva lanu. So the word tziva, tzava, literally means connection. I was listening to a rabbi who really dislikes the translation of mitzvah as a commandment. Okay. And he was king in Yeshurun when the leaders of the people were gathered, all the tribes of Israel together. He was king over Yeshurun, and there's a note there. when the leaders of the people assembled along with the tribes of Israel. Let's see what the note says. Yeshurun means the upright ones, that is Israel, also in verse 26. So this comes from the word yashar, which means straight. So if you ever go to Israel and you ask for directions, they'll say yashar, yashar, yashar. You go straight, straight, straight. And yesharim, right, is people who are upright, people who are straight, right? So Yeshurun comes from that root. So Chabad, and he was king in Yeshurun whenever the sum total of the people were gathered and the tribes of Israel were together. So, yeah. V'yihi b'Yeshurun melech b'hitasef rashei am yachad shiftei Israel. Yeah, so Yeshurun melech, right? So Veyehi, and there was, right? So it's getting flipped in context. In Yeshurun, a king, right? Behit Asef, so this is the Hitpael of Asef Aleph Saf Samech Pei, which is agricultural gathering usually, right? And it's in the reflexive form. In the gathering, Roshei Am, the heads, literally Rosh means head. Roshei Am, the heads of the people. Yachad Shiftei Israel, together with Shevet is a tribe, right? Well, it's also a stick, but here Shiftei Israel, the Shvatim are the 12 tribes. So Yachad means together, right? Yichud, related to the word Echad, or Yachid, right? There's also that verse, Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim kam yachad. How beautiful it is for brothers to sit together, dwell together. Okay. Verse, where are we at? 6. Okay. Let Reuven live and not die, nor his people be few. And there's a note there. New King James. Let Reuven live and not die, nor let his men be few. Let's see what the note is. But let. Okay. Yeah, how you want to translate that, I guess, is kind of up to you. Chabad, may Reuven live and not die, and may his people be counted in the number. I'm not going to do all the Rashis. Okay. Yehi Reuven va'al yamot ve'yehi matav mispar. Interesting. Okay, so Yehi, like Yehi HaMelech, right? Long live the king. Yehi Reuven, right? It's kind of the same thing from Chai to live. Al here is not Yamot, to die, and I mean, I guess it's normal for there not to be a vav there. Veyehi metav mispar. Now, what this means, I mean, all of them said the same thing. Mispar is a number. Metav, from mat, man, associate. Interesting. Mete mispar. Oh, right. Mete mispar. Yeah, so Mete Mispar is actually used several times in the Bible together. Few friends from the same as Matai, properly an adult, as of full length. Oh, from the Mete Mispar, yeah, I guess is, but this is Matav Mispar. Let's see what Rashi's saying. Mete Mispar. נמנין במניין שער רחב, דוגמה היא זו כעניין שנאמר וישכב יעקב לא יצא מן המניין. Rashi is not being much of a help. ויהי מטב מספר. Yeah, I guess. His okay. Part of it is that it's, so Metav here, obviously, it's alliterating with Yamot. And so the poetic word choice possibly is what's just so strange here. Yeah. And there's a punctuation at the end of this, samech, which is satuma, which is what's called a closed break in the scroll. It's kind of like a paragraph break in the scroll. It's not a full break, which would have the next line be on the next line. So you don't see the break in the margins. I mean, honestly, it's just so hard to translate this stuff. I think I warned you. Okay, verse 7. And this he said of Judah, hear, Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him to his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and may you be a help against his enemies. Okay. And this he said about Judah, hear, Lord, the cry of Judah, bring him to his people. With his own hands he defends his cause. Oh, be his help against his foes. Okay, God. May this also be for Judah. And he said, O hearken, O Lord, hearken to Judah's voice, and bring him to his people. May his hands do battle for him, and may you be a help against his adversaries. So the beginning of the verse, I guess, let's see what the Hebrew is. Vezot liYehuda, vayomer shema havaya kol Yehuda ve'el amo tevienu yadav Rav lo ve'ezer mitzarav tihyeh. This is so hard to translate. So, Vezot leYehuda, Chabad is saying is part of what Moses said, and the NIV and NKJV is saying that it's actually like a note before he says it. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Vizot leYehuda, It's a similar construction to the beginning of this, which is Vezot HaBracha, right? And this is for Yehuda. Vayomer, and he said, so that's Moses saying, Shema, right? It's the command form of listen. Havaya kol Yehuda. So God should listen to the voice of Yehuda. It's in a construct voice in Yehuda. Ve'el amo tevienu. So to his people, tevienu. So this is the hefil. It's the causative of the word ba, which means to come. So cause to come. And the suffix is a little bit strange, but third person masculine singular. I don't know what that E stands for in their morphology. But tevienu, right? Bring him, yeah. Yadav Rav Lo. His hands, well, they're saying sufficient. Rav actually means much or many. So it's actually more than enough. Yadav Rav Lo. His hands are enough for him. Ve'ezer mitzarav tihye. So Ezer, just like Ezra, right? Ezer means a help. So tzorer is somebody who is besieging you, an enemy. So his enemies, mitzarav tihye. Help from his enemies you will be. And there's a setuma, there's another break there. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how you translate things like this. Like, there are all the words. It's not like any words here are in this whole sentence are strange or anything. It's just the combination of them. The El Amo is the preposition with the Aleph, not Ayin, in case you're trying to figure it out. Don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Verse 8. And of Levi he said, let your Tumim and your Urim be with your Holy One, whom you tested at Massa, and with whom you contended at the waters of Meribah. And there's a note there. NIV. About Levi he said, your Tumim and Urim belong to your faithful servant. You tested him at Amasa. You contended with him at the waters of Meribah. Let's see what the note there is. So Urim and Tumim, they're translating as, well, Tumim comes from the word tam, so they're translating it as perfection, and Ur comes from the word or, so they're saying light. Yeah. But obviously the Urim and Tumim are the breastplates, right? They're the gemstones that the high priest wears. Let's see what Chabad says. And of Levi he said, your Tumim and Urim belong to your pious man, whom you tested at Massa, and whom you tried at the waters of Meribah. So obviously all Kohanim are part of the tribe of Levi because they are all descendants of Aaron, and Aaron was Moses' brother, Moses from the tribe of Levi. Tested at Massa. So apparently the Levites did not complain at Massa, which was one of the things. And May Meribah. That's Numbers 20:10. Yeah, May Meribah. What happened there? Okay, let's see the Hebrew. Ulelevi amar tumecha ve'urecha leish chasidecha asher nisito bemasa terivehu al me meriva. So, yeah, you'll see that these words are alliterating with each other, right? So, and for Levi, right, Amar, tumecha ve'urecha, this is the singular you, right? So Rashi is saying that this is referring to God's Urim and Tumim, right? Leish chasidecha is for your, so chasid, right? Chesed, it comes from chesed, but a man of godly, pious, right? Asher nisito b'masa, right? So the testing comes from, has the same root there as masa, right? Nisayon and masa. There's that samech in the center there, right? And the same thing, terivehu, right? So it has the same root as meriva, right? You see the double language there, and the preposition is with the ayin, not aleph. The waters of May Meriva, terivehu, right? So, yeah, terivehu, I think literally means to cause to split. Agitate, disquiet. I mean, it's used a lot of times. Ruve, a primitive root, properly to toss, grapple, most figuratively to wrangle. I thought it might be to cause, yeah. So it's not the same root as many. It's resh yud bet. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. You're not finding very much. There isn't much of a difference between how these words get translated. But when you're reading them in the Hebrew, I mean, they have such a different flavor, in my opinion. Where were we? 9. Who said of his father and mother, I have not seen them, nor did he acknowledge his brothers or know his own children, for they have observed your word and kept your covenant. He said of his father and mother, I have no regard for them. He did not recognize his brothers or acknowledge his own children, but he watched over your word and guarded your covenant. God, who said of his father and his mother, I do not see him. Neither did he recognize his brothers, nor did he know his children, for they observed your word and kept your covenant. So Rashi's says that this is referring to the sin of the golden calf. Ha'omer la'aviv ula'imo lo ra'itiv, ve'et achav lo hikir, ve'et banav lo yada, ki shamru imratecha ubritcha yintzoru. Okay, so yeah, I mean, pretty simple stuff. So says regarding his parents, I didn't see it, right? I didn't see him, right? And and I'm guessing this is in the masculine just because it had to pick one. Re'itav, I didn't see him. Lohikir, right? So lahakir means to recognize, right? Makir. It's actually, I think, pretty common. Nakar. Yeah, it's used, well, not that common, 49 times. But yeah, it means to recognize someone. Ve'et banav, so this is, it's written beno, right? His son, which is singular, but we read it as banav, as his sons in the plural. Lo yada, he did not know, and this is the intimate know, right? Ki shamru, so kept your word, right? Imratecha comes from the word amar, which we say is the less intensive way of speaking than daber. So they guarded, shamru, shamar, right? Shomer Israel, God is Israel's guardian. Ubritcha yinsoru. So this is kind of interesting. The word netzer is like to plant, I think. Natsar, notzer, chesed la'alafim. Yeah. Insoru. "61 times in the Bible. Natsarti. Tzer. Yeah. Natsaru. It's interesting. There's some question as, so the word in Hebrew for Christian is notzri, and so where exactly that word comes from is kind of, whether it actually should be Nazar, right, instead of Natsar, and it got switched or not. I think some people argue that. Yeah, Ubritcha Yinsoru. And there's, I guess it's kind of normal not to have a vav there. Yeah. Yeah. Verse 10, they shall teach Jacob your judgments and Israel your law. They shall put incense before you and a whole burnt sacrifice on your altar. He teaches your precepts to Jacob and your law to Israel. He offers incense before you and whole burnt offerings on your altar. God, they teach your ordinances to Jacob and your Torah to Israel, and they shall place incense before you and burnt offerings upon your altar. Yoru mishpatecha leYaakov v'toratecha leIsrael yasimu ketorah be'apecha v'chalil al mizbechecha. Interesting. Not what I expected. Okay, so yoru comes from the same root as Torah, right? So this is the hefil, the causative, right? To guide, right? Hora'ah. So teach or guide. Mishpatecha comes from the root to judge, right? Shoftim. LeYaakov, to Jacob, v'toratecha leIsrael yasimu. So they shall. So yes, lasum is literally to put, right, or to set. Sin vav mem is the root, and this is in the. They're saying kal. Yasim. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It is the call. Yeah. sim shalom, right? To place, to give peace. Yasimu. Ketorah be'apecha. So Ketorah, it's Ketoret Hasamim is the incense offering. So Keturah is also the name of Abraham's third wife, who gave him the 6 sons. But Keturah, written with the vav here. Yeah. Yasimu Keturah be'apecha. They shall put incense. Literally, it's saying in your nose. Obviously, it means in front of God. It's literally in your nose. Don't know what to tell you. Be'apecha. Rashi doesn't say anything. V'chalil al mizbachecha. So the word chalil here is what's at contention. So a kolel means to bring together, right? So chalil al mizbechecha. It is used other times. Actually, it's used a lot more times than I thought. Utterly. I would use your concordance here. Yeah, from Kalal. Complete or perfect. Khalil al Mizbechecha. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I at best I would say go ahead and use your concordance. So there is it says Olam Lahavaya Khalil Taktor. I mean, it is used several times. Khalil Tachalat Milala. These are just strange words in strange combinations. Right. So Dominic says they didn't complain. True. Okay. Where were we? 11. Bless his substance, Lord, and accept the work of his hands. Strike the loins of those who rise against him, and of those who hate him, that they rise not again. Bless all his skills, Lord, and be pleased with the work of his hands. Strike down those who rise against him, his foes, till they rise no more. God. May the Lord bless his army and favorably accept the work of his hands. Strike the loins of those who rise up against him and his enemies, so that they will not recover. Barach Hashem Chelo Ufa'al Yadav Tirtze Machatz Motnaim Kamav Umesanav Min Yakumun. So it's funny. Barach Hashem Chelo Ufa'al Yadav Tirtze is actually something people say a lot when they want to say God should make someone wealthy and healthy and wise, kind of thing. So Barech is the command form of to bless. Havaya is the tetragrammaton. Chelo. So this is the question: what exactly chayil means here? Right. So last week we talked about kochi ve'otzem yadi asali hachayil haseh. Right. My strength and my the strength of my hands made these riches for me, right? Osechayil, right? To make riches, substance, yeah. So fo'al, so this is the root of which all root words come from, right? Pa'al, right? So this is fo'al, work, right? Fo'al yadav, the work of his hands. It's in a construct form. Tirtze, shall accept, right? Ratzon, resh tzadik hey. Mechatz motnav. So mechatz, I believe, is oh no, I thought it would be with a thought it was an arrow. No. Chatzim em chatzem. Used 14 times in other places in the Bible. To smite, thoroughly wound, severely shatter. Primitive root mem het tzadik. Yeah. Beat or agitate milk. Okay. Don't know what to tell you. So machatz motnav. Obviously, motnaim is loins, is thighs, right? I think part of it is just machatz matnaim, the alliteration with the mem there. Kamav, of those who rise against him, right? So the loins of those who rise. So kum means to rise up or to stand up, right? So kamav, people who stand against him, right? Yeah. Umesan av. So the root here is sin'ah, which is translated as hate. Is possibly related to separation, right? Specifically, min yakumun. So again, the yakumun is a repetition of the kamav, right? So it's using the same root, and it's using it in a strange way with a paragogic nun at the end. This is poetry, and it's so hard to like translate the poetic language to English. It just I don't even know how you would do that. The idiosyncrasies of this text it's just strange. And it sounds a particular way, and it has a song to it. And there's a setuma, there's a closed break at the end of this as well. Okay, verse 12. Of Benjamin he said, the beloved of the Lord shall dwell in safety by him, who shelters him all day long, and he shall dwell between his shoulders. Okay. And about Benjamin he said, let the beloved of the Lord rest secure in him, for he shields him all day long, and the one the Lord loves rests between his shoulders. Chabad. And of Benjamin he said, the Lord's beloved one shall dwell securely beside him. He protect him all day long, and he dwells between his shoulders. So I guess this is because so Rashi says this is because this is the fact that Jerusalem is in the land of Binyamin. Le Binyamin Amar Yedid Havaya Yishkon Lavetach Alav Chofef Alav Kol Hayom Uvein Ktafav Shachem. Okay, let's just go word for word. I mean, to Binyamin, he said Yedid, right? So Yedid Nefesh, right? The Dod also mean, right? Ani Ledodi, to my beloved in Song of Songs. So Yedid is beloved. Yedid Havaya. It's in the construct with Havaya. Yishkon Lavetach. So the root there is obviously Shechina, right? Shochen. Shin Chaf Nun. Hey T, glad you made it. So Yishkon Lavetach. So this is like Mishkan, which is the tabernacle, right? And Shechina means neighbor. So Yishkon Lavetach. So Bet Tet Chet is safety, right? So blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, right? Batach Bashem. Boteach Bashem. Yeah. In modern Hebrew, bitachon is actually insurance. So shall dwells in safety. Yeah. I mean, how you translate that precise thing, I don't know. Alav chofef, and not very afaf. Used only once in the entirety of the Bible. Enclose or surround. Oh, might be the same root as chuppah, to cover. Or yachef. Oh, yachef, barefoot. Don't know what to tell ya. Alav chofef. You will chofef to him. Guess encircle him? Don't know what to tell ya. Alav is the preposition with the ayin. Kol hayom, so all day long. Uvein kitafav. So again, you see the alliteration, right? Chofef and kitafav. So ketef is shoulders, right? So between his shoulders. Shachen, again, just like yishkon, the same word is being used several times. Those are the words. I don't know what you're going to do with them. And there is a closed break there. Okay. And Joseph, he said, blessed of the Lord is his land, with the precious things of heaven, with the dew, and the deep lying beneath. About Joseph he said, may the Lord bless his land with the precious dew from heaven above, and with the deep waters that lie below. Okay. And of Joseph he said, his land shall be blessed by the Lord with the sweetness of the heavens with dew, and with the deep that lies below. see. Okay, Ule Yosef Amar Mevorechet Havaya Artso Mi Meged Shamayim Mital Umitahom Rovetzet Tachat. I know what all those words mean. I don't know how you would translate them. So, and to Joseph, he said, Mevorechet, right? So this is, it's the pual participle, right? So is blessed of God. Mevorechet Havaya. Artso. So Mevorechet is in the feminine because Eretz is feminine. So his land is being blessed by God. Yeah. Mimeged Shamayim. So, I mean, I understand where they got sweet for Meged. Magdanim are precious or sweet things. Excellence. And it's used in the Song of Songs and in Deuteronomy 33 several times. From an unused root, precious fruit thing, okay? Probably meaning to be eminent, properly a distinguished thing. So I mean, I guess you could say it comes from the word neged, which means against or before. Something valuable as a product of fruit, pleasant, precious fruit. Yeah. So Mimeged Shamayim Mital. So tal is dew, from to dew. Shamayim obviously means heaven. I mean, I don't know how I would translate this. Mimeged Shamayim Mital. There are obviously words missing there. And when you translate them, you're going to end up having to add words. So, not sure what to tell you. Umitahom rovetzet tachat. And I found this really interesting because, so Tehom is the deep in Genesis 1, right? It says, Ruach Havaya, no, Ruach Elokim, the Spirit of God, Merachefet al Hatahom, I believe, if I remember. Al Panei Hatahom, on the face of the deep, right? So that's the word Tehom. Yeah. And from the deep, or yeah, and the deep. No, I would say from the deep. Rovetzet, so is crouching. So this is the exact same language that God uses when he's talking to Cain, and he says that that sin is crouching at the door, right? Rovetzet. Written bechisaron vav here, which I guess is normal. Tachat. Tachat means below. Umetahom rovetzet tachat. In the feminine, so it must be going on land. So the land is crouching from the deep below. I'm sorry, I don't know how I would translate this. I know what all these words mean. Don't know what. It's just poetic and pretty. What can I tell you? It's pretty. It sounds nice. Okay, verse 14. With the precious fruits of the sun, with the precious produce of the months, with the best the sun brings forth, and the finest the moon can yield. Okay. And with the sweetness of the produce of the sun, and with the sweetness of the moon's yield. See what the Hebrew is. Umi meged tuvuot shamesh, umi meged geresh yerachim. Okay, so that word meged, which whatever it means, sweetness, fruit, whatever, tuvuot, so tuvua is produce, right? They're saying fruits. It comes from ba, right? And I would have expected it to be written b'milui vav. It's written b'chisaron vav, but tevuot, tevuot shamesh. So shemesh is the sun. So the sweetest fruit of the sun. Umi meged geresh yerachayim. So geresh means to send away. So divorce, right? And when Adam and Eve get sent out of the garden, it uses the same root, gerish, there, right? Gerushin, right? To send away. But here it means something that is gotten from Yerachim. So Yerach is the moon, right? Gerish Yerachim. So I mean, it's in the construct form. I wouldn't translate it as the moon. I would translate it as months. Yeah, Yerachim, because it is in the plural. And that's the meaning of all those words. Verse 15. With the best things of the ancient mountains, with the precious things of the everlasting hills, with the choicest gifts of the ancient mountains, and the fruitfulness of the everlasting hills. God. With the crops of the early mountains, and with the sweetness of perennial hills. Okay. Umerosh hare kedem umimeged givot olam. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna do the words and you put them together however you understand them. So conjunctive vav, prepositional mem, rosh means head, right? So the head, the top, hare, so har means mountains. The extra resh there isn't so strange. At various times it's either har or hare. Right? Kedem, literally kedem means in front of, right? So the east is called kedem, and the Ancient of Days is called now I'm blanking there. But kadmon can mean ancient, can mean early, can mean eastward. Umimeged givot, so givoa means high up. Here, givot, I guess, is the heights. I would probably translate this. Givot olam. Literally of the world, but also when we say something is le'olam, we say something is permanent. It's forever. Givot olam, heights of the everlasting. Don't know how you would translate this. I just don't. Verse 16. With the precious things of the earth and its fullness, and the favor of him who dwelt in the bush, let the blessings come on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who was separate from his brothers. With the best gifts of the earth and its fullness, and the favor of him who dwelt in the burning bush, let all these rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. And there's a note there. The note says, or of the one separated from. Okay. Abad. And with the sweetness of the land and its fullness, and through the contentment of the one who dwells in the thorn bush, may it come upon Joseph's head and upon the crown of the one separated from his brothers. Umimeged eretz umloa, uritzon shochni sne, tvuata larosh Yosef, ulakodkod nezir echav. Okay. Just gonna translate the words. Don't know what to tell ya. So meged, like we've been saying, it's in the construct with land, right? Umloa, and the things that fill it, right? So land and the land and everything that's on it, from male, right? Retzon is will, right? So when we say God's will, we say Yehi Ratzon, it should be his will. Shochni sne. So the root is shochen, like we had before with Mishkan. Masculine singular construct. Shochni. That's not going to be full. I'm not sure why it's shochni sne. Sne is the same word for bush that's from Moses and the burning bush. So shochni sne. I'm trying to figure out what that yud at the end is like ait, right? So when we say Israeli, right, we say Israelite. So this is shochni, right? He who dwells, shochni. The dweller, maybe? In the bush, yeah, shochni sne. Tuvuota, like, and we had tuvua previously, so it's tavota. No, this is the command form of bow to come. Tavota larosh. Tavota. It's going off land, which is feminine, should come. Tavota larosh Yosef. Whatever it is, the land should come to the head of Joseph. Ula kodkod. So kodkod is literally forehead. And I mean, I guess they're saying crown of the head. Nezir echav. So Nezir either from Nezer, right? Nazarite, which means to lenazer means to vow, right? It's the vows. Nezer Achav, the one who was separate from his brothers. Yeah, Nazir. Don't know what to tell you. I mean, there are all the words. I don't know how I would ever translate this to English. I just wouldn't. Sorry. I just wouldn't translate this. Yeah, I have no clue how you translate this. Verse 17. His glory is like a firstborn bull, and his horns like the horns of the wild ox. Together with them he shall push the peoples to the ends of the earth. They are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Menashe. I know this verse well, but in majesty he is like a firstborn bull. His horns are the horns of a wild ox. With them he will gore the nations, even those at the ends of the earth. Such are the 10,000s of Ephraim, such are the thousands of Menashe. And this is the verse that refers to Mashiach ben Yosef. That's why I know it so well. Yeah. So, Chabad, to his firstborn ox is given glory. His horns are the horns of a re'em, so they didn't even translate it. With them, he will gore peoples together throughout all the ends of the earth. These are the myriads of Ephraim, and these are the thousands of Menashe. Yeah, Bechor Sharo Hadar Lo, Vekarne Re'em Karnav, Bahem Amim Yinagach Yachdav, Afse Aretz, Vehem Rivavot Ephraim, Vehem Alfe Menashe. And there's a setuma at the end of this verse as well. So Bechor Shoro, firstborn ox, yeah, shore, right, of his bull. Hadarlo is glory, splendor to him, right? The karne re'em karnav. So, and his horns are the horns of a re'em. What is a re'em? Good question. I've read books that say that it's an aurochs. I think some of the translations used to translate this as unicorn. What exactly the re'em is, you could have, like, lots of people have tried to figure this out. Bahem amim yenagach yachtav. So with these, right, his horns, amim yenagach. So he will. Nogeach literally means to gore, right? So a shor nagach is a goring bull. So he's going to push to gore with his horns, whatever that means. Amim, peoples, right? The nations. Yeah, some people still like unicorn, although it's a carne re'em. It's not a unicorn. It's gonna have multiple horns. So maybe it's a dicorn. I don't know. Tricorn. It might be a triceratops. There we go. Triceratops. Yachtav. So together with him. So it kind of, it sounds to me like he's kind of rounding them up. Yeah, that's what I think of it. I mean, this is a this is one of those verses. Afse aretz. So Ephes literally means like nothing. Afse aretz are the ends of the earth, right? The corners of the earth. Vehem rivavot Ephraim. So they are the myriads, right? We had Revava before, of Ephraim, and Alfe Vehem Alfe Menashe, and they will be the thousands, or Elef can also mean strength or bull. Alfe Menashe, the thousands of Menashe. And there's a setuma there. There's a closed break there. Don't know how people translate these things. About Zebulun, he said, "Rejoice, Zebulun, in your going out, and you, Issachar, in your tents." And of Zebulun, he said, "Rejoice, Zebulun, in your going out, and Yisachar in your tents." And to Zebulun he said, "Rejoice, Zebulun, in your departure, and Yisachar in your tents." Velizvulun Amar, "Semach Zebulun betzetecha, ve'Yisachar be'ohalecha." So, and to Zebulun, right? He says, "Rejoice." This is simcha, right? Samach mem chet. It's in the command form. Samach Zebulun betzetecha, in your going out, right? So letzet, right, means to go out, to leave. Ve'Yisachar be'ohalecha. In case you're wondering why it's written Yisachar and it's read Yisachar, for some reason everybody knows that sin there is silent almost always. There is a book, B'nai Yisachar, but Yisachar is written with two sins, and it's just, I think this is the only silent sin in the entire Bible. I mean, every time the name Yisachar comes up, but it is what it is. Be'ohalecha, in your ohalim is tents, right? So, not a lot of words here, right? To tell you exactly what it's talking about. 19. They will summon peoples to the mountain, and there offer the sacrifices of the righteous. They will feast on the abundance of the seas and on the treasures hidden in the sand. They shall call the peoples to the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall partake of the abundance of the seas and of treasures hidden in the sand. Okay. They will call peoples to the mountain. There they will offer up righteous sacrifices, for they will be nourished by the abundance of the seas and by the treasures hidden in the sand. Okay. Amim har yikra'u, sham yizbechu zivchei tzedek, ki shefa yamim yinaku, usfune tmune chol. Okay. So, Amim, nations, Har is mountain, Yikra'u, they shall call. Right. They shall call. I don't know what to do with that. Yeah. Sham yizvechu zivchei tzedek, so it's using the same word zevach. Mizbeach is the altar. Zoveach means to slaughter, right? To chop up an animal. So yeah, and so yizvechu zivchei tzedek. It's in the construct form with tzedek, righteousness. So they're going to bring sacrifices of righteousness. Ki shefa yamim yinaku. I'm just going to translate it straight. Ki, because shefa means what comes out of, right? So yeah, shefa. I don't know what to tell you. Yamim yinaku, of the seas. Or I guess maybe of the days? Shefa Yamim. No, that would be Yomim. Yamim. Shefa Yamim. I guess maybe this is talking about like fish. Yinaku. So Yenek, this is the root to suckle, right? So a baby that hasn't been weaned is called a tinok. So yeah, yinaku. They're going to partake of, they're going to be nurtured by, nursed by, I guess. Ushfune tmune hol. I don't know what. Oh, sfune. This is a sin pe nun. And it shows up one time in the entire Bible from Safan. Oh, okay. So the belief here is that this samech is actually from, I mean, that sin is the same root as samech. I think I've told you guys there is some question whether sin is related to a shin or a samech. I actually kind of go with the samech thing. And sfon in that manner is used 6 times to mean like a panel or something outside, I guess. A cover. So sfune tmune chol. So tamun is something that's been what do you call it? When you kind of insulate, right? When you insulate something, it can, yeah, hidden, right? It's something that's been enveloped in something else, right? Tumune chol. So things that have been buried, hidden, or covered with sand, right? And chol here obviously means sand, especially because it's talking about yamim. Chol can also mean profane. Yeah. And then there's a closed break at the end of this as well. Yep, let's keep on going. Verse 20. And of God he said, blessed is he who enlarges God. He dwells as a lion and tears the arm and the crown of his head. Okay. And God, he said, blessed is he who enlarges God's domain. God, excuse me, lives there like a lion, tearing at arm or head. God. And of God he said, blessed is he who grants expanse to God. He dwells like a lion, tearing the arm of his prey together with the head. see what the Hebrew is there. Ulegad Amar, Baruch Marchiv Gad, Klavi Shachen Taraf Zroa Af Kodkod. Okay, so, and to God, right, he said, Baruch Marchiv Gad. So, Baruch, blessed is, right? This is the hefil, it's the causative, and it's in the participle, it's in the present tense. Rachev, Merchav is something that's wide. A Rachov is a street, right? So Marchiv causes to be wide, enlarges. God, right? As opposed to besiege, tsar, right? This is often a comparison that's made. Mitzrayim, right? A place of narrowness. Kelavi shachen v'taraf. So lavi is one of the ways of saying a lion. The other one, the more common one, being aryeh. It's used 14 times in the Bible. I'm not sure what the difference is between Lavi and let's see if Rashi says. Because Arayot. Yeah, he doesn't say why it's using the word Lavi instead of Aryeh. Might just be because for poetic reasons. Although I'm not seeing a lot of alliteration there. Shachen, again, this word, the dwell. Taraf, right, is to tear apart, right? So trefa is something that's not kosher because it's been torn apart, right? Something killed by animals is a tarif. So v'taraf, so he tears off. Yeah. Zroa is arm. Af kodkod, even the forehead, so crown of his head. Yeah, not sure what you do with that. 21. He chose the best land for himself. The leader's portion was kept for him. When the heads of the people assembled, he carried out the Lord's righteous will and his judgments concerning Israel. He provided the first part for himself because a lawgiver's portion was reserved there. He came with the heads of the people. He administered the justice of the Lord and his judgments with Israel. He saw the first portion for himself because there the portion of the lawgiver is hidden. And he came at the head of the people. He did what is righteous for the Lord and what is lawful with Israel. Okay, Vayar reshit lo ki sham chalkat mechokek safun veyete rashi am tzidkat havaya asa umishpatav im Israel. Okay. So Vayar, like to see? Yeah. So he saw Vayar Reshit Lo. I mean, it says he saw, he looked at, I mean, he took care of, I guess, provided, maybe. Reshit Lo. So Reshit is the same as Bereshit, right? The in Genesis, right? It says or Reshit Chochmah, right? But it's in the construct form, right? And there's nothing there with it. So the beginning of what, it doesn't specify, right? For himself, lo. Oh, well, for him, if you're depending on who's the providing and seeing. Ki sham chalkat mechokek. Because there is the portion, right? It's in the construct form with mechokek. So chelek means a piece. Chalkat is another way of saying piece. It's the feminine form. Mechokek. So literally, a chokek is somebody who scribes, right? So who inscribes, sorry, to cut, inscribe, decree. But so chok is a statute, right? So mechokek is somebody who, literally somebody who inscribes, but it's talking about somebody who writes statutes, writes laws, legislates, I guess. Safun, like we spoke previously about that samech, right? I mean that sin and the samech, safun, right? Reserved. Veyete, I am not sure about yete. From ata, to come, but that's in Aramaic. "21 occurrences." Yeah, these are in Hebrew. I mean, that is the verb to come in Aramaic. I guess it's just, yeah, like they said, I guess it's just used less often in Hebrew, because we usually use the word bow. It's used 21 times. So it's the same root. Roots don't always transfer from Aramaic to Hebrew exactly the same, but I guess this one does. V'yete roshe am, and he will come, and he came. Well, this is well, you have to decide whether or not you believe this imperfect is getting flipped or not. Roshe am, the heads of the people, and this is in the singular am. Tzitkat havaya, so the justice of God. It's tzedakah, right? Which in modern Hebrew actually means charity, but literally means justice. Tzitkat havaya asa, he administered. Umishpatav im Israel. So mishpat comes from the word shofet, right? Judge. So his judgments with Israel. Yep. And there is a closed break there. Verse 22. And about Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's cub springing out of Bashan. Gur Aryeh. And of Dan, he said, Dan is a lion's whelp. He shall leap from Bashan. Chabad. And of Dan, he said, Dan is a young lion streaming from Bashan. And that is a really long Rashi. Okay. Uledan Amar, Dan Gur Aryeh, Yizanek min Habashan. Gur Aryeh is said a lot. So to Dan, he said, Dan, the is implied, Gur Aryeh. So Gur is, I mean, I think it pretty much always gets used with Aryeh. Yeah, Gur Aryeh, Gur Aryeh, Gur Gurehen, guess not. Gureha. Guess it's not always a lion cub. Gurarye. Yeah, it comes from gur, to live. Perhaps it says so, from something that's in the lair, right? So gur Aryeh. Aryeh is obviously a lion. Yeah, so Yizanek min habashan. So this root I am not familiar with because it only shows up once. Yizanek. Yeah. Not familiar with it. To leap, maybe. From Zua? Properly to draw together the feet of an animal. Spring forward. Don't know what to tell you. Not a very... I mean, it's only used once in the Bible. Rashi is probably explaining that whole thing. Streaming from Bashan. Wow, Targum Onkelos reads it. Okay, I'm not going to do all the Rashis. This is a really long Rashi, but you might want to look at that. Okay. Verse 23. About Naphtali, he said, Naphtali is abounding with the favor of the Lord and is full of his blessing. He will inherit southward to the lake. Okay. And of Naphtali, he said, O Naphtali, satisfied with favor and full of the blessing of the Lord, possess the west and the south. Yeah, very different translations there. And of Naphtali, he said, Naphtali is favorably satisfied and full of the Lord's blessing, possess the sea and the south. Okay. Let's see what the Hebrew is. Ule Naphtali Amar, Naphtali sova ratzon umale birkat havaya yam v'darom yarasha. Not a lot of words, and you have to translate it, and that's why it's so difficult, right? So he says to Naphtali, Sava, right? Sova is to be satiated, right? Achalta v'savata uvarachta, right? You shall eat and be satisfied and bless the Lord your God. So Sova is used a lot. It can also mean to reach old age. Yeah, sova ratzon is, so ratzon, like we said, is like the will or favor of God, right? And we say yehi ratzon. So he's sova ratzon. I don't know how you're going to translate that. Umale, and he is full with birkat havaya, right? The blessing of the tetragrammaton. Yam v'darom yirasha. So yam literally means the sea, but in Israel, so if we're doing directions, yama towards the sea is the west, right? So yam v'darom, so either the sea or the west. Darom means south. Yerasha shall inherit, but they're translating as possess. Yerasha is to inherit. In a command form. And there is another closed break. So if you look at the scroll, you will see that there's a lot of breaks here, which is common for poetic language. Okay. 24. About Asher, he said, a most blessed of sons is Asher. Let him be favored by his brothers, and let him bathe his feet in oil. Okay. And of Asher, he said, Asher is most blessed of sons. Let him be favored by his brothers, and let him dip his foot in oil. Okay, Chabad. And of Asher he said, may Asher be blessed with sons. He will be pleasing to his brothers and immerse his foot in oil. Okay. Ula Asher Amar, Baruch mibanim asher yehi ritzui echav, vetovel bashemen raglav. Okay. So, Baruch mibanim asher. So, he is blessed either with children or of children. I guess of children makes more of this. The tribes, I guess, that's what it means. So he is blessed, the blessed one of the sons. Yeah, most blessed. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Asher yehi ratzui. So he will be favored. Like we said, ratzon means will. Ratzui is gets, is accepted, right? Something that is wanted. Ratsui. Yeah. Echav. So he will be favored by his brothers. He will be wanted by his brothers, I guess. Vetovel bashemen raglav. So the word tovel here is actually the root for dip, right? Baptism is translated into Hebrew as tovel, as the immersion, right? So tevila. John the Baptist in Hebrew is called Yochanan Hamatbil. Yeah, Bashemen, in the oil. There is an article there. It's not Beshemen, it's Bashemen. Raglo, his foot. He will dip his foot in oil, in the oil. Not sure why Rashi doesn't say the... Yeah. Not gonna do the Rashis. We'll be here forever. Your sandals shall be iron and bronze. As your days, so shall your strength be. The bolts of your gates will be iron and bronze, and your strength will equal your days. Chabad. Your locks are iron and copper, and the days of your old age will be like the days of your youth. See what the Hebrew is. Barzel unechoshet min alecha. Yeah. Ucheyamecha dov echa. Oof. Okay, so barzel means iron, nechoshet means bronze. Min alecha, so na'al can mean a shoe or a sandal. It can also mean a lock. So, min alecha, which of those? It's a sandal, it's a strap, it's a lock, it's a door even, Don't know what to tell you. Ucheyamecha davecha. And like your days will be your dava, which shows up only one time in the Bible, of uncertain derivation. Perhaps rest, but sense very doubtful. What can I tell you? We've gotten a lot of words that only show up once in the entirety of the Bible. Maybe from Davav, Dovev, flow gently, move, glide. Let's see what Rashi says. Davecha. Chayamecha davecha, like the days that are your best, namely your davecha is where he's getting it from the Sifri. Yeah, that's a midrash. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, like your days is your dava, and dava, who knows what that means? Okay. There is no one like the God of Yeshurun, who rides the heavens to help you, and in his excellency on the clouds. There is no one like the God of Yeshurun, who rides across the heavens to help you, and on the clouds in his majesty. Okay. Chabad. Yeshurun, there is none like God. He who rides the heavens is at your assistance, and with his majesty he rides the skies. Okay. Ein ka'el Yeshurun, rochev shamayim be'ezrecha, uvga'avato shachakim. Interesting. So Ein means there is none, right? Ka'el, so prepositional chaf with the article. El is means power, it means God. It's it's the shortest name of God. I probably shouldn't have pronounced it. So Kel Yeshurun, the God of Yeshurun. And like we said, Yeshurun is the upright ones. Rochev Shamayim. So Rochev means to ride. And this is in the present tense. So rides the skies. Rochev Shamayim. Be'ezrecha is your help, is there to help you. So, yeah, be'ezrecha is there to help you. Uvgavato, so ga'ava means pride. In fact, even kind of like, we'll say a Baal Gava is somebody who is prideful, right? In a bad sense. So, Uvgavato shchakim. And in his Ga'ava, in his pride, shchakim, thought was thunder. They're saying clouds. Shachak, dust or cloud. Speck of dust. Yeah, you can use your concordance. It's used 21 times in the Bible. From shachak, a powder. By analogy, thin vapor. Small dust. From pulverize, shachak. That's why I thought it meant thunder. I remembered the beating thing. Okay. Uvgavato shchakim. And in his pride are clouds. I don't know how you translate these. I really don't. Verse 27. The eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He will thrust out the enemy from before you, and will say, destroy. The eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He will drive out your enemies before you, saying, destroy them. Okay. Chabad. Which are the abode for the God who precedes all, and below are the mighty ones of the world. He expelled the enemy from before you and said, destroy. Okay, let's see what the Hebrew says. Me'ona Elokei kedem umitachad zroot olam V'yigaresh mipanecha oyev v'yomer hashmed. Okay, so me'oneh, they're saying is refuge. Me'on? Yeah, me'on kodsho. Mimeonecha. Mimeonot. Dwelling place, refuge. Feminine of ma'on. Me'one elokei kedem. So, obviously, this is the Shem Elokim in the construct form with kedem, which, like we said before, means before or ahead of or ancient or eternal, I guess, yeah. Umitachat zroot, and from under zroot. So zroa is a arm, yeah, and it's written bechisaron vav. There are no vavs in there. Zroot, olam, and underneath the arms of everlasting, zroot olam, the everlasting arms. I'm not sure what to tell you. Veyigaresh, like I said, garesh means to divorce, to throw out, to make come out of. Mi panecha, shall from before you, from literally from your face, but before you. Oyev. Oyev is one of the ways of saying enemy. It's also where the name Yov comes from, meaning Job. Vayomer Hashmed, and he shall say Hashmed. So this is the hefil, it's the causative of shamed, which means destroyed. Yeah. Can meshumad, exterminated. We say that somebody is meshumad if they meshumad is somebody who turns towards other religions as well. And he says hashmed, be destroyed. Cause to destroy, destroy. Yeah, hashmed. It's in the command form. Okay. Then Israel shall dwell in safety, the fountain of Jacob alone, in a land of grain and new wine. His heavens shall also drop dew. So Israel will live in safety. Jacob will dwell secure. See the note. In a land of grain and new wine, where the heavens drop dew. So, Septuagint, Hebrew, Jacob's spring is. Okay. Let's see. Abad. And Israel dwelt safely and alone as Jacob blessed them in a land of grain and wine. Also, their heavens will drip dew. Okay, let's see what the Hebrew is. Vayishkon Israel betach badad ein Yaakov el eretz dagan v'tirosh af shamav yarfu tal. Okay, so Yishkon again comes from dwell, Shechina, like we said before. So Israel will dwell, Yishkon, right? Shachen, Shechina. Betach, right? Like we said before, bitachon is surety, insurance is bitachon in modern Hebrew. Badad means alone. At the beginning of Lamentations, it says, Eich yashav badad. How did the city sit alone, right? Boded. It's bodedut means to meditate alone. Ein Yaakov. So Ein literally means I, and here obviously it's talking about obviously it's talking about the fountain. So Ein Yaakov, right? The literally eye of Jacob, but yeah, fountain also. El Eretz Dagan, in a land of Dagan means grain. V'tirosh, tirosh is, yes, new wine, right? Af Shamav, even his heavens, right? This is Shamayim, so this is Shamav, his heavens. Ya'arfu dal. So Oref means neck, I believe. To drop. Rip or drop. Primitive root. Wondering what it has to do with Oref. Only used twice. Yeah, Ya'arof. Okay. Yeah, Oref is also neck. Not sure. Ya'arfu tal. So tal is due. Yeah, Shamav Ya'arfu tal. Not sure how you would translate that. 29. Happy are you, O Israel, who is like you, a people saved by the Lord, the shield of your help and the sword of your majesty. Your enemies shall submit to you, and you shall tread down their high places, places for pagan worship. Blessed are you, Israel, who is like you, a people saved by the Lord. He is your shield and helper and your glorious sword. Your enemies will cower before you, and you will tread on their heights. Fortunate are you, O Israel, who is like you, O people whose salvation is through the Lord, the shield who helps you, your majestic sword. Your enemies will lie to you, but you will tread upon their heights. Okay. Ashrecha Israel, mi chamocha am nosha bahavaya, magen ezrecha v'asher cherev gavatecha, v'yichashu oivecha lach, v'ata al bamotenu temo tidroch. And it's a closed break again there. Okay, Ashrecha, Asher means, so Osher v'Osher, with the Aleph, it means happiness. With Ayin, it means wealth. Here it's with Aleph. Right, Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha is very common in the Psalms. Happy are, right? So, blessed, happy, yeah, fortunate. Ashrecha Israel. So you are fortunate, Israel. And it's interesting that it switches genders in the middle of this. Mi chamocha, who is like you, am nosha bahavaya. So, a people. So the root here is yesha, right? To save. And this is in the nif'al. It's in the passive form. So, who is saved, nosha bahavaya, in God. Yeah, bahavaya, by God, in God. Nosha bahavaya, in God, I would say. Magen Ezrecha, so Magen is a shield, like Magen David is the Star of David, right? Shield of David. Magen Abraham, shield of Abraham. Magen Ezrecha, the shield of your help. Ve'asher cherev gavatecha. So, and that, ve'asher, right? Cherev means sword. Gavatecha, like we said, gava is pride before, but of your pride, your majesty. Ve'yichachashu, so this root, to disappoint, deceive, fail, grow lean. Yeah, to deny. That's where I remembered it from Sarah. Used 22 times in the Bible, chachash, this root. To be untrue in a word, to lie, or deed, to disappoint. To deceive, deny, dissemble. So, vayichachashu oivecha, your enemies will, yeah, I guess lie. That's how Chabad does it. I'm not sure why they're doing. Well, submit. Well, this is in the Nifal, so it's in the passive. I'm wondering what's. So Rashi is translating Yichashu as they will lie. Yeah. Oivecha lach. And here it switched gendered. That happens sometimes in the Bible. Ve'ata, so lach is second person feminine singular. Like, it's possible that this switches because of the cantillations. I don't know the cantillations very well. Ve'ata al bamotecha tidroch. Bamotemo tidroch. So, and you, al is the preposition with an ayin. Bamot, so a bama is a high place. It was an altar, right? So that's where they get it. That's a bama. So bamotemo, so their high places. Tidroch, literally, derech means a way. You shall walk. You shall, I guess, tread down is right. Tidroch. Yep. And then there's the stuma. Okay. Unless anybody has questions, that is it for the night. Sorry, honestly, this is one of those chapters that makes me go, how do you even translate this stuff? You know, you try to do your best. And if I had to make a translation, I likely would somehow figure, I would actually probably do it even more, figuratively. But, yeah, it's so hard. What is the view in Judaism for the fate of the other tribes? I think most people generally just believe that I think generally the belief is they've been lost completely, possibly. Not that there aren't any of members of those tribes left, because obviously not, there were Jews living in the southern kingdoms, who, when the northern kingdom was destroyed, who were of the other tribes. But, you know, there's a lot of people who have this idea, especially the Israel, there's this whole group that believe the British are the 10 tribes, right? Which kind of funny to me. Yeah, it's honestly, I don't know that we have very specific beliefs, because this isn't something that makes a practical difference within Judaism. So if it doesn't make a practical difference, there will be multiple opinions, and that's just fine. You know, whatever the opinions are, elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim, right? These and these are the words of God. It's only when there is a practical difference that we would actually decide one way or the other. I wanted to ask you guys, how was the sound? Because I got a new microphone and tried to set it up. Hopefully this is better. Please leave comments. And let me check on the server. Nothing on the Discord server. So next week, we will be doing the 10 Commandments. Great. Glad to hear the sound is better. Okay, if there is nothing else, I am going to finish off with Zephaniah 3:9, as I always do. Ki az epoch el amim safa berra likro chulam b'shem havaya le'ovdo Shem echad. Thus I will turn over, restore to the peoples a pure language, so that all of them may call in the name of the Tetragrammaton to serve him with one accord, with one shoulder. Amen. Yeah, I will be hanging around a little bit longer in case anybody has questions. Probably gonna hang around for another 20 minutes or so, doing stuff. Feel free to hang around. So not sure if this person's actually watching the live stream or not, but this is a question on the Discord server. With regard to the Gates of Hell video, yes. How do you reconcile Cain with Jacob? Cain, who revolted against God's rejection of his sacrifice, which is seen as a bad thing, with Jacob, who manipulated his brother, deceived his father, and then fought with God himself to get his way. Who's given the kingdom as a reward? Okay. Your question is definitely coming as from a very different place than how we explain what happened there with regard to Jacob, right? The simple answer is that, you know, obviously Cain was a murderer. Jacob didn't kill anyone. And there's, you know, Jacob was also the son of Abraham and Isaac. And so he had zchut avot. But also we don't interpret the the whole story that way at all, right? So the interpretation we have is very different. So I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think that's. I don't hear the question so much. I don't think that's such a you know, I don't think that's such a strong question for me. So if you want to, I think the basic answer to your question is we do not interpret Jacob's actions in that way at all. But yeah. Another question. Do you think for these passages that are difficult to translate, they may reference translations of other ancient languages? It's possible. Oops, I forgot about that. It's possible. The Greek or Aramaic, I mean, I'm not sure. I think it's possible that they're ancient, more ancient things that are being referred to and stuff, that these may be older songs. I think part of it is merely the poetic nature of it. Yeah, I guess it is possible that the words may come from other languages as well. But I'm guessing, I mean, I really think it's mostly to do with the poetic and the song of it, the alliteration, right? These when you sing it, you don't have as much questions about the exact meaning. And it's not like all of the verses had, these words that are only used once. There were certainly a lot of verses which did not have strange words in them. I understood all the words. They were common words. Question becomes, what is it saying with those words, right? Yeah, so that's what I would say. I'm wondering which word you thought was in Greek in Deuteronomy 33. I was a tiny bit surprised at the ata, which is the Aramaic root, although it wasn't an exact thing. So it is the Hebrew version of the Aramaic root. And it's not so strange that a common Aramaic root would be a less common Hebrew root. I don't know if you want to rephrase your question. I wasn't saying that any of it comes from another language, but if someone is translating from Hebrew to English and isn't sure the best way to do it. So I have to say, I mean, honestly, within Judaism, we kind of say that you can't actually translate it, right? When you try, personally, if I was translating this, I would probably use a very, very figurative language that attempted to somehow capture the poetry without trying to so much stay true to the words. I mean, so definitely in trying to figure out, especially the words that only show up once, Rashi went to the Targum Onkelos, which is standard to do, right? So the Targum Onkelos is what's considered the canonical translation into Aramaic of the 5 books of Moses. I'm not sure if there's Targum Yonatan, which is a different Aramaic translation, but generally within Judaism, we would go with the Aramaic translations. I'm not exactly sure what Onkelos says here. Rashi was referencing a lot of Sifri, right? Sifri, Genesis Rabbah, the Talmud. You see, like, this whole page is long Rashi after long Rashi after long Rashi, right? And it's and he's going into the midrashim and stuff. So certainly, I mean, and even the Septuagint, which in Judaism we're not big fans of, we would still, I mean, I'm fine with looking at it and trying to see what's there, especially since this is in the 5 books of Moses. I am very skeptical of going to the Septuagint outside of the 5 books of Moses, because that's not actually Septuagint, right? It's just random translations by random people. The Septuagint was done at a particular time by particular people, by at the demand of the king. So there you can talk about the Septuagint. But when you talk about the Greek translation, right, when people say the Septuagint of Isaiah, for example, right, we don't know who translated that. It was just some Jew who decided to translate it to Greek. And it's not like there's only one version. I guess, I mean, there are more canonical versions which get used by some people, and quoted in the Christian Greek Bible, and so yeah, I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with, and when you look at the Mefarshim, right, when I look at Rashi, we're looking at older sources trying to figure out what it is, especially when you have these words, these roots that only show up once. It's what bothers me is when people go to the Septuagint for things that it's a very common root, right? Like the order of Melchizedek, right? Divrati Melchizedek. Come on, that's not something you need to go to. That's not something you need to go to a Septuagint for. Or there's a few places where it's a very common root, and Christians suddenly are, saying that weird things that only happen once in the Bible are happening in order to fit their theology in there. Which is part of the reason I think Judaism is so adamant about the Hebrew, because people will argue with me based on a single scholar who said a particular thing. because they have no capacity to evaluate the statements themselves. But when you learn the Hebrew and you do it for yourself, right, then you can evaluate if somebody's taking a word that's commonly used and just using it in a completely different way, right? Anyway, any other questions? I keep on forgetting this new setup of mine shows everything that comes up in its view screen, whereas my old setup only showed the programs I wanted it to show. So, yeah, that's how part of my thing showed up. You are quite welcome. I am very happy that people are actually watching this stuff. I did not anticipate anybody actually watching this stuff. So, yeah, if I can be a resource, my pleasure. It's fun for me. Yeah. I'm gonna stick around another few minutes, another 4 minutes or so. If anybody has questions or anything.